Hello and welcome to In the Room, a unique interview series exploring the wonder and craft of artists from the LGBT and BAME communities. I am so excited to be joined by Tyrone Huntley today. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm not bad, thanks.
That's good. It's so cool. I think you've had such a wonderful, illustrious career with lots of different highlights and credits, West End touring, all sorts. I'd love to start and ask what was your first sort of experience in the arts? Was there any particular inspirations from school or from family?
I guess growing up, I've always been quite musical. I've always enjoyed singing.
Yeah.
Um, I remember when as young as a toddler, my parents used to tell me that I'd sit and eat, but as I ate, I'd hum at the same time. So I'd always be trying to
Ah,
sing or hum along to songs or whatever. And yeah, as I was growing up listening to like Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, and just singing along to them and enjoying their music, um, I've always sort of just enjoyed it really, and it's just been something that's been a fun hobby pastime that I enjoyed doing, and it never really became a career option really until I was in my late teens, really. Um, that said, at school, I participated in school shows, school musicals, um, and there was like a Shakespeare schools festival that I used to do every year in
oh,
my
that's cool.
teens. Yeah, and I was encouraged, I think, just because I had that sort of like um, showy personality, it was sort of the the obvious route to sort of go into it as something to do extracurricular. I
Yeah,
wasn't a very sporty person, so drama was my thing really. So I was encouraged by my teachers, by my parents, going to like Saturday drama classes and things like that, just to have something to do outside of school.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, so that sort of led into me doing GCSE drama, and then it was at the end of my GCSE, so the summer before my A levels, my drama teacher, Mr. McCarthy, who was with me all the way through secondary school, gave me a leaflet for this um, musical theatre summer school at RADA.
right.
And I it wasn't really in my mind to do anything like that. I just wanted a nice summer off before I start my A levels. But
Fair enough.
he
That is
said,
fair.
yeah, but he was like, why don't you go and do this? It seems like a lot of fun. It's only a couple of weeks,
Yeah,
and it might sort of inform whether or not this is something that you potentially want to do as a career, or even going into A levels, drama school, that kind of thing. So I went and did this course for 2 weeks at RADA, um, and had just an amazing time. It was my first time away from home, um, down in
uh,
London, and I met some incredible people. One of whom is one of my closest friends to this day,
yeah,
and just had an incredible time. And I think that was the first sort of feed in terms of me taking this seriously as a career option.
yeah.
Um, so I did that course, came back to Lincoln, did my A levels, which included drama, and I hadn't yet 100% decided that I was going to do acting. So I applied to do law and similar courses at university, got in, and I was all ready to go to the University of Nottingham.
Yeah.
Um, and then it wasn't until probably only a couple of months before, um, so probably like April time, um, just as I'm doing my exams,
Yeah.
um, my drama teacher at the time, Miss Yarsley, um, said to me, "Why don't you just audition for drama school?"
Right.
Um, and see what happens. You don't have to make any decisions. There's no obligation to go through with it. If you get in, if you don't get in, whatever.
Yeah.
So I applied for RADA because I went to the summer school a couple of years before. I loved it, and that just seemed like the obvious choice. So I applied to RADA. I didn't get in, and
Okay.
I was more disappointed than I thought I would be about not getting in. So this just being on a whim,
Yeah.
and something that I was just going to see, for the experience, not
Yeah.
getting in actually hit me harder than I thought it would. So I had a discussion again with my teacher, and she was just like, look, if you're disappointed, that means that you wanted it. You wanted to do this.
Mm.
So have a look at some other courses because you've still got time to audition, and see what comes up. So I literally went into Google, typed in musical theatre degree,
Mm.
and the top choice, the top thing on Google was
Yeah.
Mount View, which I'd never heard of before, and I'd never heard of any drama schools before.
Wow.
So apart from RADA. So I had a discussion with my teacher who said, yeah, look, you can sing. So why don't you go and audition for a musical theatre course? So I called up Mount View, and at this point I had missed the deadline for applications. So I rang them up and I was like, I'm like 2 weeks late. Is there any way that I can get like a slot to come in and audition? And they were lovely, and they were like, yes, come along. We've got a space for you.
Yeah.
So I went in, and it must have been literally like the week after, and I went for the audition day, and met the tutors and other auditionees, and whilst it was incredibly overwhelming and so much RADA, it seemed very sort of official, and the audition
Yeah.
process, it was all like, I didn't really see anyone else, like it was all sort of like one in, one out.
Right.
But Mount View, it was literally like hundreds of people. The atmosphere was buzzing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, whilst it was overwhelming, it was somehow less intimidating than RADA because it was just a bunch of young kids,
Mm.
just excited about things. So I had a really great time at the audition, got through, and then a few days later, I got my letter saying that I got in. So that was amazing.
That's
And
incredible.
yeah, and at the time I was still due to go to study law,
Yeah.
so I had a decision to make, and it wasn't actually until a few things happened. I sort of like had to sort of have a talk with myself and figure out what I wanted more,
Yeah.
and that conversation with myself was like, the law is always going to be there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and this opportunity to go to drama school might not happen again. The law, it's exams. You get into drama school because you pass your exams and whatever. That can happen whenever. But
Mm.
with drama school, it's sort of like you get this opportunity, you take it. So so that was part of my decision, and the other half of the decision was I was waiting to hear back if I got Dance and Drama Award, which is essentially a scholarship,
Yeah.
which helps pay fees, and sometimes you get like a maintenance grant along with that as well. Because without that, I wouldn't have, there's just no chance I would have been able to go to Mount View anyway. So I was sort of waiting to hear back from that, and luckily I got the award, which meant that I could afford to go. And when I got that through, I thought, well, that's fate. So I decided to
Oh.
ring up Nottingham and say, I'm really, really sorry, I'm not taking the place. And that September I moved down to London and started at Mount View.
the rest is history. Wow, that is such an incredible start. I suppose, like, I think one of the roles that you're notably known for is obviously playing Judas in Jesus
Mm.
Christ Superstar. I wonder, training at such an incredible institution like Mount View, how you're part of a select group who only knows, the actual rigor of performing such an incredible role, 8 shows, a week. How did your training impact the way that you crafted that role? Was there any things you learned, or was it more an instinctive process?
I think it's a mix.
Okay.
I've got so many friends in the industry who never went to drama school, and I think there are certain things that you can just learn as you go and learn on the job. And I certainly did playing Judas.
Yeah.
But obviously the discipline, um, uh, being able to sort of sustain, at drama school, you start the day at 8 o'clock in the morning and oftentimes finish at 8 o'clock at night. So, they're really long
Yeah.
12-hour days. And it's not just, going to the library and doing an essay, and not saying that that's not rigorous, work, but it's physically demanding, it's
Yeah.
mentally demanding. You're doing ballet bar at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then, you've got singing lessons, individual, group, acting class, and it's sort of like you're having to change your focus throughout the day, let alone from term to term. So
Yeah.
it just helps you really hone those skills of being able to um, uh, focus on what is needed at that particular time, whilst reserving the energy to work on what you need to work on in other times. So yeah, it's so many things at drama school helped me in all the roles that I've done.
Mm,
But I just think it's about stamina more than anything.
yeah. For trust.
Yeah, it's just it really, when I did my first job, um, I sort of understood my first job, Sister Act, the tour. I
Yeah.
was sort of thrown at the deep end because it was straight out of drama school into the job, and it was a tour, so it was just a lot. But at the same time, I felt that having had 3 years at drama school, where I was pushed to the extremes mentally, physically, and in every sense of the word, I think um, that helped just make the transition more comfortable. So yeah, so I think drama school was really valuable in teaching me certain skills. Of course that, and of course the actual skills of singing technique, picking up dance routines, that kind of stuff. That's by the by, but you know you expect that from drama school anyway. But I think it's the other things that really helped as well.
That's cool. That's cool. I think what's been really great as well, to see you just really carve some iconic roles. I saw a tweet you did a couple of weeks ago. I love your Twitter account. It's so funny, by the way.
Thank you.
All the gifts. I'm
Try
here
my
for it.
best.
I'm here for it. Uh, but there was a lovely little post, which is quite funny, but also quite poignant, in the way you're spoken about. When you're a casting director, or you get an opportunity for a role that is not, necessarily defined as black, and it's been great to see your career being able to define, roles that were traditionally played by actors like
Yeah.
Judas or Barnaby, but then also play, CCY. How do you
Mhm.
approach selecting roles, or what is that moment after you receive that phone call? Is there a particular quality in a character?
I think if I'm being completely honest,
Yeah.
especially early on in my career, um, say every time I say early on in my career, I feel really like there. But
You can
it
afford to
has
say
been
that,
it
okay?
has been it has been 10 years since I left drama school. Anyway,
Wow.
I honestly I think early on in my career, I have to say that I took jobs that were offered to me. There was no thought behind, oh, I wonder how I could play this role. I wonder what challenges this role would give me. There was none of that. It was just sort of like, if the work is offered, you take it because it might not come round again.
True, true.
Um, But luckily,
Mm,
you know, working with the incredible directors that I've worked with, I was able to find challenges and uh, you know, nuances in the roles that on the surface wouldn't necessarily have been obvious to me. So, you know, in Sister Act, I played TJ, who was one of the, I don't know if you know the story of Sister Act, he's one of the
yeah,
thugs and, you know, one of the supporting characters. But, you
yeah,
know, my first job out of drama school, it was challenging for me because it was a comedy role. I had to be funny. And the humor, people would say like on tour, like venue to venue, humors will change. Like what's funny changes from venue to venue, and sort of
cool.
having to accept that and not necessarily change how you approach the role, but definitely adapting to the audience's
Yeah,
response
yeah,
was something that was a skill that I tried to develop in that role and during that experience. So, you know, with each um, character and with each role that I approach,
mm,
whilst when I accept the role, it's not necessarily something that I think about whilst I'm doing it and on the job. You
yeah,
definitely, you know, you live and learn and you pick things up and that even today, 10 years on, I can look back on and have had that lesson and can keep it with me.
mm,
But yeah, now as I'm sort of in a position um, where I'm able to sort of put more consideration into the roles that I do,
yeah,
um, I think there there's sort of two ways I look at it. There's one way is that um, I'm really sort of passionate about uh, telling stories that I can relate to as a black man.
right,
So characters that are written as black.
yeah,
Um, so if the story is a black man's story, I am drawn to it because it's something that I feel that I can um, give my experience in life and uh, give a truthful portrayal because I've lived it. You know, obviously everyone's
yeah,
experience is different and whatever, but that is something that I do look at when I'm reading a script. I'm thinking how has my experience and how is the way that I've grown up and my life can really sort of relate to the character. So I think that obviously when I'm looking at black characters, there's that connection, but also I'm so um, I think it's really really important as well that stories are told that aren't necessarily. I think when I'm reading a script, I try really hard not to impose race on characters
right,
um, before is necessary.
yeah,
So when I'm sent a script to audition for a role,
yeah,
um, I will read it looking at all the characters and seeing which one I can relate to more. And if race isn't um, a big part of the plot, if the plot isn't about race, it's more about which character I feel I connect to more. And I
yeah,
think that is something that I really want to, moving forward in my career. I want to be able to look at a character and connect to that character. And then if I end up playing that character is black.
yeah,
And obviously the experiences of that character as a black person will inform the way that it's played, but
yeah,
it doesn't necessarily have to be a character that is written as black,
that's
or it
right.
doesn't necessarily have to race doesn't have to be the first thing that we consider when I'm looking at wanting to play a role. So yeah,
Oh,
it's sort of a a balance, because obviously I think it's really, really important to tell Black stories written by Black people and about Black people. But at the same
Mm,
time, I think in this day and age, I think it's really, really important to tell stories. And the stories just happen to be about a Black person or a white person or an Asian person,
mm,
and doesn't necessarily have to be about race. The race of the
yeah,
character informs the story potentially, but it doesn't have to be the focus of the story.
that's so powerful. So powerful. I feel like I could just go home now and just end this. But it's so cool. I think we share a Guyanese Jamaican heritage, which is really
Yeah,
cool, which is nice.
yeah,
Um,
amazing.
it's very unique, which is
Yeah.
cool. But I think that's so powerful, and I think seeing your career journey and kind of meander, being able to take
Mhm.
on new roles, and you were able to actually be creative as well. Directing Ain't Misbehaving at the Southern Playhouse, produced by Paul Taylor Mills, working with Oti Mabuse, Strictly Star. What informed that decision? Was it a case of like wanting to have a directorial approach before, or was it
I
just?
mean, I've always sort of had in the back of my mind the idea that eventually I'd want to be on the other side of the table, as it were, and be
Right.
in a more creative position. Um, I think um, I think this opportunity, Ain't Misbehaving, the opportunity sort of came out of nowhere.
Oh,
In I was at the time I was in rehearsals for Leave to Remain at
yes.
the Lyric, which was a, a very different show. It was something that I'd never really done before. It was sort of physical theatre, dance, play with music, sort of written sort of from a TV perspective. So it was sort of a mishmash of all these different um, ways of telling stories. So it was a
Wonderful.
lot to take in,
Mm,
um, and it sort of that process sort of got my mind in a really sort of like, it took me out of a performing mindset, because each and every one of us in that cast had to sort of change our the way that we sort of went into the show, and we all sort of had to be creatives on that show. We all had to be sort of like co-directors, as it were. I mean, obviously that Robbie Graham was our director, and he sort of like led, you know, was at the helm, but we all sort of had to put on our uh, creative hats, and do that as well. So I was sort of in that mind frame, and randomly, I got a phone call from Paul, who I'd worked with years ago on Hairspray at the Curve.
wow.
And he had reminded me about a conversation we had all those years ago, where I sort of said, I can't really even remember the exact conversation, but I remember it happened. I remember the conversation happening, where I said that eventually I'd love to get into directing. And he reminded me of that conversation and said that he had a potential opportunity to do that. And he was doing a co-production with Mercury in Colchester,
Yeah.
um, Ain't Misbehaving, and they were looking for a creative team, and he just couldn't get me out of his mind, even though I'd not directed before. It's like, oh my gosh, I had that conversation with Tyrone 5 years ago, and
Wow.
I just feel like it's the right thing. So
Yeah.
he rang me up and asked if it was something that I'd be up for, well, be up for having a conversation about anyway.
Right.
And because I was in the frame of mind of having to work things out, sort of in that, because of the show I was doing at the time, I was like, yeah, let's have a conversation about it. So Paul took me for dinner, me and OT. We went for a lovely dinner,
Cash.
and yeah, just casual. And we had a conversation about the piece,
Wow.
and we just had a long chat about the logistics of it all, and our ideas. And by the end of that dinner, um, I felt like I'd known OT for years, and Paul's amazing. I've known him for years anyway, and it just gelled,
Yeah.
and we were just like, let's just go for it and see what happens. And I think part of the allure, I guess, of doing it is that um, it it was a black creative team. It was me and OT at the
Yeah.
helm, sort of directing and choreographing a cast of black talent, with a black band. And I think that was really, really exciting to sort of get those incredible creatives together. And it was almost, we had to talk about the casting and all that kind of stuff, and it was almost sort of um, predetermined that we were going to at least have an incredible time creating something. Who knew if it was going to be successful or if anyone else would like it? But with the team that we had together and the talent that we brought together, we knew that we were going to create something worth creating. And luckily, it all went to plan, and we had the most amazing time. And I got to work with some friends that I've known for years, in the company, and we just had a really incredible time. And it's my first time directing something of that scale. It was this incredible experience. Paul was amazing. Dilek and Tracy at Mercury, who were the producers at Mercury, were there the whole time, giving us uh, sort of helping us through, because it was OT's first time choreographing for musical theatre as well. So we had such incredible support throughout, and yeah, it just worked out. And it was just one of those things where everyone was in the right place at the right time. We got the cast that we wanted. We were able to sort of do the show in Mercury, and the audiences loved it, which gave us the confidence to bring it into to London at the Southwark Playhouse. Again, a theatre that I'd worked at before as an actor, so I knew the theatre. So that's again, there was the comfort there of going to somewhere that I knew, and it all just worked out, and it was an incredible experience. And yeah, hopefully I'll be able to do something again. There's sort of like been now a big gap because of COVID, that certain things were going to be happening, but now they've been postponed and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm really excited to direct again in the future.
Yeah, I think that was literally you just opened the door to what I was going to say next, because I think your production, your approach to working with the cast and helming a production, it was so authentic and it was so beautiful to
Thank
see.
you.
And obviously we've had some time, and I know you've been kind of translating into different things during lockdown. But are there any particular musicals, or that, like, in terms of musical theatre roles you might want to play as an actor, or even to direct as well? Are there any like key inspirations?
I mean, I've always, when everyone, I get asked this question a lot, like, are there any like dream roles you'd like to play?
Yeah.
Um, and the answer to that question, honestly, is that not really. I sort of take each production or each script as it comes, and if
Yeah.
I feel like I want to play that character at the time, then I'll try and play that character. And if not, it wasn't for me, and I don't really have any sort of like dream roles. Every role that I'm playing at that particular moment is my dream role, because
Yeah.
it's the role that I worked for and auditioned for. And I'm so thankful that I was able to do it. Or the role that I'm auditioning for that I didn't get, it was my dream role up until the point that I didn't get it, and then it's just a role that I never got. So it's sort of like, yeah, so there's no role that I'm sort of after. And similarly with directing,
Okay.
I'll read a script and I'll be like, oh, I want to direct that, but it's not necessarily my dream script. It's just something that I'd love to work on. I have a couple of musicals in mind. I won't say them now, just in case, but that I'm talking to people about. So it's, yeah, there are shows that I'd love to work on as an actor and as a director, but you know, nothing, if they don't work out, then there'll be others. Like, there's no sort of like, oh, I really want to do that. it's sort of we'll see what happens. And I've always been like that, sort of like we'll we'll take a role and it'll be good or it'll be not so good, and we'll learn from it anyway. So so we'll see what happens.
That's wonderful. I suppose as the industry kind of shapes, and we've had this time of lockdown, and I suppose I wonder how would you describe your relationship with like social media and kind of interacting with fans? I know you speak a lot about mental health and things like that. How have you kind of journeyed through this time without having a physical project as such? How have you still developed as an artist?
Well, so social media is such a funny thing, because it's sort of it's the best and worst of technology in my opinion, because I do love it. It's hilarious. Like, you go onto Twitter and you can have the best time with people that you've never met, but that you just a Twitter thread starts and it just laugh after laugh after laugh, and it's just jokes. But you log on at the wrong time and you just see such depressing news about the wider world and politics and all that kind of stuff, but similarly about the industry, people just not being very nice about other people, not being nice about shows, not being respectful of each other. So it can be a really frustrating place to be. I personally try not to be I try and bring joy on social media. Now that could that could be me posting a gorgeous selfie of me looking amazing, or I'm so joking, but I will post selfies. That's my thing. Or it could be me posting a GIF or a video that I think is hilarious. But I just think I post things that I find funny, and sometimes they absolutely bomb and no one else finds it funny. But I'm literally just watching it over and over again, laughing at myself because I think I'm hilarious. And I think if I'm laughing, that's the main thing. And it's about just trying to just spread joy. And I try not to even like politics and stuff. I try not to unless it's something that's close to my heart. Like, for example, last year with Black Lives Matter over the summer, I was vocal to a point, and then it all got a bit much, so I sort of took a step back because it just got a bit overwhelming. And it was amazing because there was, I had so many messages in my DMs from people who I've met once or twice saying that they really appreciate things that I've been putting out about Black Lives Matter and all that kind of stuff. So it was great in some respects, but I as soon as it gets overwhelming and it's argument after argument, I just take a step back and it's like, look, that's not why I'm on this platform. I just wanna have some fun. So it's finding the balance. But yeah, so that's social media. It can be amazing and it can be truly dreadful. But I just think it's about me personally. I will I'll do Instagram, I'll do Twitter, I'll do whatever until it feels like I'm not having a good time, and then I'll take a step back.
Right.
So it's each to their own, but as long as you're being respectful of each other is the main thing. In terms of my like how I kept creative and that kind of stuff over the past year, for me, I think it's about at the very beginning of lockdown. I sort of went back to, earlier I was talking about how I love music, and that was sort of how I got into performing. That's what I did. I just made sure that I sang every day, and that started, and this sort of ties in with social media. I would post 15-second clips of me singing on Instagram, on my Instagram story, just so that I made sure that I was sort of like accountable. So it's like, have you sung today? You have to have sung because you need to post it on social media. So that was sort of something that I did with myself early on. But again, it got a bit much, and it got the pressure of trying to all that kind of. So I just stopped, and that's fine, and whatever. And again, I've been very lucky that I was able to do Jesus Christ Superstar again last summer.
Yeah.
So that was incredible that I was able to. I was back and forth between. I live in Lincoln, so I was back and forth between Lincoln and London. So I had 3 days at home, sort of. With my family, and 3 days where I got to be creative and got to play Judas and be with my creative peers and have a great time over the summer. So that was really, really helpful and sort of I was able to sort of get back to some sort of normality where I was doing my job again.
Mm.
And yeah, other things, just reading reading books,
Yeah.
mainly about race,
Yeah.
or starting a book about race and it getting a bit much, and then reading a play about race and that being too much. So
Too much.
yeah. But again, like I said earlier, I am sort of like thinking ahead to when this is all over about projects that I'd like to do. So I've been reading musicals, listening to cast recordings, sort of trying to figure out what I want to do next if the opportunity came about. So that's been great, and also trying to write a little bit.
Oh.
I'm not a writer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm yet. It's something I'm again, something about me is that I don't enjoy doing things that I can't see myself being comfortable with. Like, I do love a challenge and I do like to push myself, but if I don't see that I'm like taking to it, it just takes me a bit more time to invest in it. So, and writing is one of those things where I'll write a scene and I'll think, wow, this scene is going to be incredible. In when I finish this play, this scene is going to be amazing. And then I'll finish the scene and have nothing else. And then I was like, oh, well, it's just a scene. Then it's just a standalone scene. I'll give it to drama school. They can do it in a showcase or something. So it's just sort of like trying to sort of push that and challenge myself a bit more. But yeah, I also think as well, what I've tried to remind myself is that there's no pressure. There's no pressure to create. There's no pressure to sing every day. There's no pressure to be up to date on all the latest albums and all that kind of stuff. It's great to do, and it's really important to stay informed and educated about the industry, obviously, because knowledge is power. But I think especially today, where there's so much more going on in the world, and it's about health, and that's physical health and mental well-being as well. That you've just got to listen to your body, listen to your what you need mentally, and just do what you need to do that day, and not it's great to sort of give yourself a timetable and a schedule and all that kind of stuff if that works for you, but don't be sort of like dragged down by it, and don't feel the pressure to have to stick to it, because let's face it, there's no like deadline at the minute. So that's one of the amazing things about this whole experience is we've been given the gift of time. We can just if procrastination is something that is like, for me, I want one day, some days I'll just be like, I just don't have the energy, and I'll just it's absolutely fine. I'll have a duvet day, I'll put Netflix on or whatever, and I'll just chill. And then the day after, I'll thank myself, because then I'll have rested, and then I'll wake up the next morning and after that and have a bit more get up and go. And so I think what I've gained from this whole experience is sort of listening to my body, and doing what I need to do, and having the time to be able to do that, because when the industry is up and running, whether you're working or not, it's busy, it's auditions, it's going to see shows and what, you know, even watching TV and watching actors and seeing what they're doing, all that kind of stuff, it's a lot
Yeah.
to sort of take in. So so having time where you can, or rather you have no excuse but to just stay in the house and chill sometimes, has been, for me anyway, has been useful. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a year of sort of getting to know myself, and also, you know, trying to be as creative as possible, but not feeling the pressure when I'm simply not in the mood.
I totally get that. I don't know about you, but my Disney Plus consumption has increased
Oh,
dramatically, and like Spotify Premium, and it's
yeah,
been
Spotify for sure.
Spotify is just the one.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how your career started for music. So I would love to ask, if you were stranded on an island, Spotify gave you premium access.
Oh my goodness.
Which three artists, composers, musical theatre, outside of musical theatre, would you stream forever on the island?
Wow. Three,
Five, if
three,
you were.
five, five. Well, I think Prince and Michael Jackson, like at the top of the list.
Yeah,
Um, I think because of because it's just part of my, like, growing up, there was like an album for every sort of moment. I think Beyonce has to be there, like from Destiny's Child all the way to now. Like for each moment in my life, an album came out that I can sort of listen to it and go back to that point in my life.
yeah.
I think Mariah Carey, because her 90s albums were playing constantly throughout my childhood, and they remind me of various members of my family. Particular song, so I'd have to listen to her.
Oh,
And I don't know, there's so much more, because I love all different types of music styles, you know, musical theatre. I love like indie rock and like
yeah.
that kind of stuff. Like there's such a melting pot of styles of music that I really, really enjoy. I don't think I could pinpoint one more artist, because it
Mm.
would just be a compilation of loads. But
Well, I think
yeah,
that versatility shined through. I think you've delivered one of the most incredible renditions of Heaven on
thank
their
you,
minds. Wonderful performance at the Olivier Awards and in the theatre as well. It's absolutely sublime.
thank you.
So would you define that as a key moment as such in your career, or do you feel there might be other experiences you would love to kind of note?
Um, I mean, of course, Judas was. I think for me personally, because it's sort of the whole experience of playing Judas was just such a random experience for me. It sort of again came out of nowhere. My initial involvement in the show was to play another role, and it wasn't until literally the weekend before we started rehearsals that I got cast as Judas, because the original Judas had to drop out.
Uh,
Um, so it all was a bit of a whirlwind, and sort of my feet didn't touch the ground until after the second time we did it, because it was just sort of like my life changed from that moment.
right,
Um, and you know, it was the, you know, the first time that I went to the Olivier's as as an individual nominee. I won an Evening Standard Award, which was just completely insane. I can't even remember that night. So that was incredible, and you know, so many incredible opportunities came from playing Judas. So obviously that's a standout role. But before that, I, you know, Sister Act, my first job, I learned so much on that job, and I was very lucky at the time. I left drama school. I was leaving drama school when I was cast in that show, and at the time, there were, as a young black actor coming out of drama school, I didn't see any role or any job that I felt that I could do. There were roles that I wanted to do, or roles that I thought, oh, I could do that, but there weren't necessarily any roles that I thought I would actually be given the opportunity to do.
right,
And it just happened that Sister Act was going on tour, And I tell you, before I even auditioned, I got so many, when it was announced that it was happening, I got so many messages on Facebook from people who I was training with, or people who I'd met through Mount View or whatever, saying, oh my God, Sister Act is happening. You have to audition. There's this role in it. You'd be perfect for it, blah, blah, blah. So when I actually did audition for it and I got the role, it was such an incredible feeling of going after something that I really wanted. And I thought, you know, if I didn't get this job, then I probably wouldn't get, there were no other jobs to get. So it was a really important for me, I guess, for my confidence and for my to sort of tell myself that this career is something that I can do, and that there are opportunities, or that there's certain that they're few and far between, but the opportunities are there for me to pursue this career. So that was really, really important to sort of get the ball rolling. I think the next major moment for me was when I did Porgy and Bess at Regent's Park, which was my third or fourth job. And I was in the ensemble, but it was the first time I'd been in a cast that was 98% black black actors, working with absolute legends. Rufus Bonds Jr., who I had listened to, who played Porgy. I had listened to his recording of Jim Conley in the original Broadway version, a cast recording of Parade.
Yes.
And we did Parade as one of our third year shows at Mount View, and I played Jim Conley. So part of my, preparation for playing Jim Conley at Mount View was listening to Rufus singing it on the cast recording, and then getting to work with him and watch him play Porgy. He just was absolutely incredible. I've never seen anything like it. He was just amazing to work with as a performer, but also the rehearsal process, just the way that his mind worked was just incredible to watch. And you know, Nicola Hughes and the incredible cast, Cedric Neal, Philip Boykin, like everyone in that room, I was learning from. Not only as an actor, but as a black actor, and just seeing the professionalism and the talent and all that kind of stuff. And I, to this day, that production and that experience, you know, is at the top for me, because it was like I said, you know, even then, looking at the West End landscape at that point, there were very few roles that I saw myself playing. Even though I'd been very lucky to have worked, it was still something that I was like, oh well, this is, you know, this train will stop at some point, because there literally just aren't the roles.
Right.
And then I watch performers who I respect, who are, you know, of the older generation, who are still working and still being incredible. Marvin Humes and Rufus, Cedric, Philip, and just being Leon Lopez, who I watched on Brookside and Hollyoaks like throughout my childhood, like just, you know, still going and still doing really important work, and really, you know, and I just watched them in rehearsals and watched them on stage and thinking, wow, I can actually, you know, sustain a career and still be doing incredible work like this, you know, years from now. So I think that was really important. And Porgy and Bess was the first time I got to work with Tim Sheeder, who's the artistic director at Regent's Park Open Air Theatre. He directed Jesus Christ Superstar. So having that prior relationship with him on Porgy and Bess, I think definitely informed his decision to be able to trust me last minute to take over the role of Judas, you know. If I hadn't worked with him before, maybe it would be a different story. So that was incredible. And also, he's absolutely a friend now, and I 100% see him as a mentor in terms of directing. He's always, whenever I'm directing something or have I'm approached to direct something, he's the first person that I text or call to sort of have a conversation about it first, because I respect him so much as a director. And you know, he the work that he did with me one-on-one throughout Jesus Christ Superstar and Porgy and Bess. Like, I remember Porgy and Bess, we, you know, me as a young, you know, someone who'd done like 2 or 3 jobs, like I remember him talking to me and giving me the same respect that he did for the seasoned actors in the room. And that sort of stayed with me, the way that he worked with the cast as a whole. And I think that's what I try to do when I'm working with a cast as well. It's just that mutual respect of, you know, yes, I'm the director, yes, you're the actor, but we're all in this room creating something. And yeah, so Porgy and Bess is absolutely a job that is very, very important to me in my development as an actor, as a director even. So yeah, there's that. And there's so many more like experiences that I've really valued. Memphis the musical was obviously incredible as well. Working with Beverly Knight, Killian Donnelly, Matt Cardle, and having a great time there, telling a really important, poignant story. And outside of musical theatre, I've been able to, you know, I've done plays and Shakespeare, and really been able to sort of try and increase my sort of versatility and try new things. Yeah, with each job and with each experience, you pick up new skills, and you work with incredible practitioners and actors and technicians or whatever, and you pick up skills, and yeah, you learn from every experience. And I've been very lucky that I've had a very varied, especially since Jesus Christ Superstar, I've been able to really switch things up. And you know, I did a play called Angry at Southwark Playhouse, Philip Ridley play, which was a 2-hander, but essentially it was monologues. So it was 6 monologues, and each night, me and Georgie Henny, who played the female lead, we'd switch every night. So each night we'd do a different set of monologues, and that experience, I mean, talk about it being thrown at the deep end. It was my first straight play, and it was, you know, there was no interaction. It was just monologues, and like the final monologue that we did was about 45 minutes long. So it was like a marathon. It was a lot. And you know, that was one of the most stressful times in my career, but it was invaluable. Like it was incredible experience. So yeah, it's been great, and long may it continue.
Indeed, I'm sure it will. It has been so wonderful to chat. I could probably chat to you, Tyrone, for about another 2 hours. There's so many things. You have to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm there.
It's been so lovely. I think hearing all of those inspirations and seeing how things work together in your career, it's a real inspiration to others to kind of let creative flow and tap in. So it's been wonderful. But before we go, let's just play a quick game of opposites.
Oh, goodness.
I don't know if you're ready. Here we go. LA or London?
London.
Phantom or Les Mis?
Les Mis.
Cool. Scone or scone?
Say that again, sorry.
So scone or scone?
Scone.
Cool. I'm with you on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. McDonald's or Burger King?
Neither. I don't eat meat.
Fair enough. Cream then jam or jam then cream?
Cream then jam.
Cool. Weather or Sondheim?
Weather, obviously.
Look, I was like, oh, Tyrone. Just repeat what? Pasta or pizza?
Pasta.
Okay. Shakespeare or Dickens?
Shakespeare.
Yeah. And then custard creams or bourbons?
I don't eat chocolate either, so custard creams. But
Ah,
but it would have been custard creams anyway, because custard creams are just the best.
they're live.
Eat a whole
They're
pack.
live.
Yeah.
They're live. Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us at In the
Thanks for
Room.
having me.
So great, and you have to go back. It was wonderful talk. Thank you so much for watching. I know that Tyrone mentioned Ain't Misbehaving, and some of his cast are actually part of our show, The Road to Prominence. So I hope you have enjoyed your time looking at and exploring Tyrone's incredible career. Thanks so much for watching and taking part.